Your declining muscle function isn't inevitable. That's a dangerous myth. Most men in their 60s and beyond accept recurring leg cramps as just part of aging, while their mobility, independence, and dignity slowly erode. Your muscles aren't failing you. Your nutrition is. These 6 specific foods represent more than mere dietary choices. They're your biological defense against the chaos of deteriorating muscle function. The connection between what you consume and how your muscles perform is profoundly direct. Your body demands these nutrients, and make no mistake, supplying them is entirely your responsibility. Stay with me because the first food might already be sitting in your kitchen. Let me tell you something about modern nutritional advice. It's not just wrong, it's catastrophically insufficient for men of your generation. The endless parade of supplements, pills, and powders completely misses the fundamental truth about your muscle health. They're treating symptoms while ignoring the underlying deficiencies that are causing your muscles to seize up in the first place. My father-in-law, a robust farmer his entire life, started experiencing debilitating leg cramps at 72. Night after night, awakened by searing pain, his calf muscles knotted into rigid cables. The doctors offered medication. His friends suggested more water. Nothing worked until he began eating a banana every single morning with religious consistency. Within 3 weeks, the nightly torment had virtually disappeared. This isn't a coincidence. It's biochemistry. Your muscles function through a delicate electrochemical dance that depends entirely on potassium. When potassium levels drop below a critical threshold, the signaling between your nerves and muscles becomes chaotic. Chaos in your biochemistry manifests as chaos in your musculature, spasms, contractions, pain. The banana represents more than just food. It's the restoration of order at the cellular level. What's happening psychologically runs even deeper. Your relationship with food fundamentally changes as you age. The metabolism that once forgave dietary indiscretions now demands precision. This shift represents a profound challenge to your identity. Men of your generation were taught that physical decline was inevitable, that surrendering to bodily breakdown was simply the price of aging. This fatalistic view becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The ritual of incorporating potassium-rich foods isn't merely nutritional, it's an act of rebellion against the narrative of inevitable decline. Start with a banana or a handful of dried apricots each morning, not occasionally but systematically. The consistency matters more than the quantity. Your muscles require approximately 3,400 milligrams of potassium daily, a threshold most men over 65 fall woefully short of meeting. When you consume these foods regularly, you're not just feeding your body, you're reestablishing your authority over it. You're declaring that decline isn't inevitable, that maintenance of function remains within your control, that suffering isn't the necessary condition of advancing years. Now, let's talk about something equally critical that most men your age completely overlook: magnesium. My colleague, a retired professor, couldn't walk to his mailbox without his calves seizing up. Started incorporating dark leafy greens, spinach primarily, into his daily routine. Within a month, he was walking 2 miles daily without incident. Magnesium governs over 300 biochemical reactions in your body, including the relaxation phase of muscle contractions. Without sufficient magnesium, your muscles can contract but struggle to release. This creates a state of perpetual tension that eventually manifests as painful cramping. Dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, contain more bioavailable magnesium than any supplement you could purchase. What's truly at stake here is your fundamental independence. Every cramp, every spasm, every midnight awakening in pain represents another small surrender of your autonomy, another incremental retreat from the physical freedom that defines quality of life. This isn't just about comfort, it's about maintaining the basic mobility upon which your dignity depends. You have a profound responsibility to yourself and to those who care about you to incorporate these foods into your daily existence. Not next week, not after the next painful episode. Today, this very day, because each day of proper nutrition builds upon the previous one, creating a cumulative effect that can mean the difference between confinement and freedom in the years ahead. Now, let's examine another critical food that addresses a deficiency plaguing nearly 80% of men your age. Let me tell you about something most physicians completely miss when addressing muscle cramps in older men. This isn't mere speculation, this is fundamental biology. While they're prescribing medications that merely mask symptoms, they're overlooking perhaps the most powerful anti-cramping nutrient available to you: salmon. I witnessed my uncle, a Vietnam veteran, physically robust his entire life, become virtually imprisoned in his home due to unpredictable leg cramps. His mobility dwindled until walking more than 50 yards became a gamble. Then his daughter, nutritionist by profession, insisted he incorporate wild-caught salmon into his diet twice weekly. Nothing else changed in his routine. Within 6 weeks he was walking a mile daily without incident. This wasn't a coincidence, it was causation. Salmon operates on two critical fronts in your body's battle against muscle dysfunction. First, it delivers vitamin D, the hormone-like substance that most men over 65 are profoundly deficient in. Your skin's ability to produce vitamin D from sunlight diminishes dramatically with age. Yet vitamin D governs the very channels through which calcium enters your muscle cells. Without sufficient vitamin D, those channels malfunction. The result? Muscles that contract unexpectedly, powerfully, painfully. What's happening psychologically is even more compelling. There's a profound archetypal significance to incorporating these primordial foods, like wild salmon, that our ancestors consumed for thousands of generations. Jung would recognize this as connecting to the collective unconscious of human nutritional wisdom. Modern processed foods represent a radical departure from the evolutionary diet that built the very muscle fibers you're now trying to maintain. The second critical component in salmon is omega-3 fatty acids, substances that fundamentally alter the inflammatory state of your aging muscles. Inflammation isn't just about pain, it's about dysfunction at the cellular level. Your muscle cells become increasingly resistant to normal signaling when chronically inflamed. Omega-3 reset this inflammatory cascade, restoring normal cellular communication. Start with a 4-ounce portion of wild-caught salmon twice weekly. Not farmed, wild. The nutrient profiles differ significantly. If you've resisted fish throughout your life, begin with smaller portions mixed into familiar foods, salmon cakes made with minimal fishy taste, or salmon mixed with stronger flavors like garlic and lemon. The benefit doesn't require culinary enthusiasm, just consistent intake. What's most remarkable about this particular nutritional intervention is how it addresses multiple biological systems simultaneously. Beyond muscle function, you're supporting brain health, cardiovascular resilience, and even mood regulation. This multidimensional impact makes salmon a uniquely efficient choice for men in their 7th decade and beyond. What's at stake here transcends mere physical comfort. This is about the trajectory of your remaining years. Will they be characterized by increasing restriction, by surrendering activities you once took for granted, or will they involve the maintenance of basic physical freedom, the ability to move through the world on your terms? The difference often comes down to seemingly small nutritional choices made consistently over time. Your responsibility extends beyond yourself. Consider the burden placed on those who care about you when your mobility declines unnecessarily. Consider the activities you can no longer share with grandchildren when muscle cramps restrict your movement. This isn't just about your comfort. It's about your continued meaningful participation in the lives of those you love. The choice to incorporate these foods represents something profound, an assertion that you are not passive in the face of aging, that you reject the narrative of inevitable decline, that you understand the difference between aging and deterioration. One is inevitable, the other is often optional. And that difference is frequently determined by the contents of your refrigerator and the choices you make 3 times daily. Now let's examine a food that addresses one of the most overlooked aspects of muscle health in older men: proper hydration at the cellular level. Listen carefully, what I'm about to tell you challenges everything most men your age believe about hydration and muscle function. The conventional wisdom about simply drinking more water misses something fundamental. It's not just about quantity, it's about how that water moves into and remains within your muscle cells. This is where most men go catastrophically wrong. My colleague, a marathon runner well into his 70s, began experiencing debilitating calf cramps during his daily 5-mile run. Not occasionally, consistently at the same point, despite drinking water religiously. His training nearly ceased until he incorporated a rather simple but profound change: watermelon, consumed daily, approximately 1 cup. Within 2 weeks, the cramping that had plagued him for months virtually disappeared. What's happening is far more complex than mere hydration. Watermelon delivers water to your system in a fundamentally different way than a glass of water. It provides structured hydration, water molecules bound to electrolytes and natural sugars that facilitate cellular absorption and retention. Your muscle cells don't merely need water passing through your system, They need water that actually enters and remains within the cells themselves. From a psychological perspective, this represents a profound shift in how we conceptualize nutrition. The Cartesian separation between food and medicine has created a catastrophic philosophical error in Western thinking. Your ancestors understood that certain foods functioned as medicine precisely because they contained combinations of nutrients that addressed specific bodily needs. Watermelon exemplifies this principle perfectly. The potassium in watermelon, substantial at about 170 milligrams per cup, works synergistically with its natural citrulline, an amino acid that relaxes blood vessels and improves circulation to muscle tissue. This isn't just about preventing cramps, it's about optimizing the entire environment in which your muscles function. Improved circulation means better nutrient delivery and faster removal of metabolic waste products that contribute to cramping. Begin with a cup of fresh watermelon daily during summer months when it's readily available. During winter months, consider frozen watermelon, nutritionally comparable though texturally different. The consistency matters more than the quantity. Your body responds to regular, modest intake far more effectively than occasional large amounts. What's truly remarkable is how this particular food addresses multiple factors simultaneously. Beyond hydration and electrolytes, you're supporting kidney function, cardiovascular health, and even reducing oxidative stress in your muscle tissues. This multifaceted impact makes watermelon uniquely suited to the complex needs of aging muscles. What's at stake here is profound. Proper muscle hydration determines not just comfort but fundamental function. Every movement you make, from walking across a room to maintaining posture while seated, depends on properly hydrated muscle tissue. The progressive dehydration that often accompanies aging doesn't just increase cramping, it accelerates the overall deterioration of muscle function and mass. You have a responsibility to understand that proper hydration is not achieved through willpower alone, drinking glass after glass of plain water. It requires strategic consumption of foods that facilitate hydration at the cellular level. This isn't about virtuous suffering through bland nutrition. It's about understanding how your body actually works and responding appropriately. The choice to incorporate these hydration-optimizing foods represents your refusal to surrender to the conventional narrative about aging. It declares that you understand something most men your age don't, that many symptoms attributed to just getting older are manifestations of specific nutritional deficiencies that can be addressed precisely and effectively. Now, let's examine another food that addresses a critical but often overlooked aspect of muscle function, the gut-muscle connection that most physicians completely miss. I want to address something that most conventional health advice completely overlooks, the profound connection between your gut health and your muscle function. This isn't speculative. This is fundamental biology that becomes increasingly critical as you age. And it centers on a food that most men your age either consume incorrectly or avoid entirely: yogurt. Let me tell you about my mentor, distinguished professor, intellectually sharp as ever at 78, but physically diminished by recurring muscle cramps that medication couldn't touch. His nighttime leg cramps became so severe that he feared going to sleep. Then his granddaughter, studying nutrition, suggested something seemingly unrelated: daily consumption of plain unsweetened yogurt with active cultures. Within 3 weeks, the cramping that had plagued him for years was reduced by almost 70%. This wasn't a coincidence, it was causation through a pathway most physicians never consider. Yogurt addresses muscle cramping through 2 critical mechanisms. First, it provides highly bioavailable calcium, not the poorly absorbed calcium of supplements, but calcium bound to proteins that your aging digestive system can actually utilize. Your muscles require calcium not just for contraction but for the precise regulation of that contraction. When calcium signaling becomes disrupted, often due to insufficient bioavailable calcium, uncontrolled contractions manifest as cramping. From a Jungian perspective, there's something archetypal about fermented foods like yogurt. They represent a kind of alchemical transformation, the conversion of one substance into another, more powerful form through interaction with invisible organisms. This mirrors the very process of psychological integration that Jung saw as essential to healthy aging, the transformation of experience into wisdom through contact with the deeper self. The second critical component of yogurt is its living bacterial cultures. These organisms fundamentally reshape your gut microbiome. the vast ecosystem of bacteria that influences virtually every aspect of your physiology, including muscle function. Emerging research suggests that certain gut bacteria produce compounds that affect how your muscles utilize electrolytes. When these bacteria diminish, as often happens with age and medication use, muscle function becomes compromised. Begin with a quarter cup of plain, unsweetened yogurt daily, preferably with breakfast. Not the sugary varieties that dominate supermarket shelves, but traditional yogurt with active cultures. If the taste seems too tart, add a small amount of honey or fresh fruit. The consistency of daily consumption matters far more than the quantity in each serving. What's remarkable about this particular intervention is how it addresses multiple systems simultaneously. Beyond muscle function, you're supporting bone health, immune resilience, and even cognitive function. This multidimensional impact makes yogurt uniquely valuable for men in their senior years. What's truly at stake here transcends mere physical comfort. This is about maintaining not just independence but dignity as you age. Every episode of muscle cramping that disrupts your sleep, limits your movement, or causes you to become dependent on others represents a small surrender of your autonomy. And that surrender is often unnecessary when you understand the precise nutritional interventions that address the root causes. You have a profound responsibility to recognize that conventional approaches to aging, accepting decline as inevitable, managing symptoms rather than addressing causes, represent a fundamentally flawed paradigm. Your remaining years can be characterized by maintenance rather than deterioration if you make informed, consistent nutritional choices. The incorporation of foods like yogurt represents a declaration that you understand something profound, that your body is not a machine wearing out, but a complex system seeking balance. And providing the precise nutrients it needs to maintain that balance is not merely good health practice, it's an affirmation of your value and dignity as you age. Now let's examine the final crucial food that addresses one of the most overlooked aspects of muscle health: stable energy delivery to your aging muscle tissues. Let me challenge everything you've been told about carbohydrates and muscle function at your age. The prevailing wisdom that carbs are somehow your enemy represents a catastrophic misunderstanding of how your aging muscles function. And it centers on a food that most nutritional advice completely overlooks when addressing muscle cramps: sweet potatoes. My longtime friend, retired construction worker, physically active his entire life, began experiencing debilitating muscle cramps that would awaken him 3, sometimes 4 times nightly. His doctor prescribed potassium supplements, increased water intake, and stretching routines. Nothing provided lasting relief. Then his wife, raised in rural traditions, began incorporating sweet potatoes into his evening meals. Within 2 weeks, the night cramps that had tormented him for years virtually disappeared. This wasn't random chance, it was addressing a fundamental metabolic need that modern nutrition often ignores. Sweet potatoes work through multiple pathways to stabilize muscle function. First, they provide complex carbohydrates that maintain stable blood glucose levels throughout the night. Your muscles require constant energy even during sleep for maintenance, repair, and proper contractile function. When blood sugar drops too low during the night, common in older men, muscles can enter a state of energy crisis that triggers cramping. From a philosophical perspective, there's something profound about returning to these ancient, unprocessed energy sources. The sweet potato represents one of humanity's oldest cultivated foods, a direct connection to the nutritional wisdom of countless generations before us. Jung would recognize this as tapping into the collective unconscious of human nutritional knowledge, a return to foods that sustained human muscle function long before modern processing created the energy-unstable foods that dominate contemporary diets. Beyond their complex carbohydrates, sweet potatoes deliver a substantial potassium load, approximately 450 milligrams in a medium potato. This potassium works synergistically with the magnesium also present to stabilize the electrical activity of muscle cells. This isn't just about preventing cramps, it's about optimizing the entire electrochemical environment in which your muscles function. Begin with a small sweet potato several evenings a week, roughly the size of your fist, baked or steamed rather than fried. The timing matters significantly. Consuming these complex carbohydrates in the evening provides a slow, steady release of energy throughout the night hours when cramping most commonly occurs. The consistency of regular consumption matters more than the quantity in any single meal. What's truly remarkable about this particular food is how it simultaneously addresses multiple factors in muscle dysfunction. You're not just providing energy stability, you're delivering a complex array of antioxidants that reduce the oxidative stress that contributes to muscle cramping. You're supporting proper circulation through nitric oxide production. You're even improving your gut microbiome, which, as we've discussed, directly influences muscle function. What's at stake here extends far beyond comfort during sleeping hours. Night cramps don't merely disrupt sleep, they initiate a cascade of negative health consequences. Sleep deprivation from chronic cramping accelerates cognitive decline, increases inflammation, compromises immune function, and even accelerates muscle loss, the very problem you're trying to address. Breaking this cycle through proper nutritional intervention represents a cornerstone of successful aging. You have a profound responsibility to recognize that the conventional approach to muscle cramps, treating them as isolated phenomena rather than symptoms of systemic nutritional imbalances, fundamentally misses the interconnected nature of your body's systems. Addressing these imbalances isn't merely about comfort, it's about maintaining the functional independence that defines quality of life in your later years. The choice to incorporate these essential foods, bananas, leafy greens, salmon, watermelon, yogurt, and sweet potatoes, represents your declaration that you understand something most men your age don't, that your muscles aren't simply wearing out, but are struggling to function in a nutritional environment that doesn't meet their basic needs. And meeting those needs isn't complicated or expensive. It requires only knowledge and consistency. Your remaining years can be characterized by maintained function rather than progressive decline. And that distinction often comes down to the seemingly small but profoundly consequential choices you make each time you sit down to eat. These 6 foods aren't mere dietary suggestions, they represent the difference between surrender and sovereignty in your remaining years. Proper nutrition isn't about extending life at all costs, it's about maintaining the fundamental dignity of independent movement and uninterrupted sleep that makes life worth living. The chaos of nutritional neglect manifests as muscles that betray you, mobility that abandons you, and nights fractured by pain. While the ordered response, consistent, intentional nourishment, creates the biological conditions for continued strength and function even as the calendar advances, ask yourself, will you accept the narrative of inevitable decline, or will you exercise the profound responsibility of feeding your aging body what it requires? The choice between gradual imprisonment in failing muscles or continued physical freedom rests not in your doctor's prescription pad but on your dinner plate. And that plate holds more power than most men your age will ever realize.